Okay, everybody, welcome back to the show, the Chiropractic Freedom Project. We're in the second season, and last time we had an amazing conversation with Dr. Guy Reekman. I had so much, feedback from that conversation, and I'm sure I'm going to get the same here today because we're very blessed to have Dr. Chacos with us, coming from Australia, on the east coast of Australia, just outside Canberra, and we've just met briefly online, and I looked at some of your background and what you've done, and then I really felt you could serve the people that follow our company. But I will say one of the things that really gave me the impetus to contact you and say, let's have a conversation. And it was in the conversation we had online where I told you that I had stopped practicing, and you had said you were in practice for 28 years. And your response to that is, why would you stop practicing? There's just so much more to offer. And the reason for that is my mission in life has changed somewhat, and we may get into that. But what I loved about that is someone after 28 years of practice is still on fire, still getting great fulfillment from their practice, still has great drive, great motivation. And a person like that can serve other chiropractors, I have certainty. So that's the intention of this conversation. We're going to be together for 30 minutes. I'm going to ask you to perhaps introduce yourself, a little bit of a background, and then we'll get back into it. So over to you.
Well, firstly, thanks, Robert. I want to also acknowledge you and appreciate you. You are serving chiropractic, serving the greater world, because when you inspire docs to step up, to raise their performance standards and their effectiveness, you make a profound and powerful impact in the world. So I just want to appreciate and love on you for the work that you do and the service you provide. So thank you to that, and thank you for everyone listening. When we continue to look into our own self, to grow ourselves, to learn, to continue to engage in platforms like this, to grow and to learn and become more, we impact the world in a profound and powerful way. So incredible gratitude for you for being here and being on that journey as well. So
thank you.
I think if you've asked me to just share a bit of background, and I think it's probably most easily done by saying that at 7 p.m. on Tuesday in the first week of chiropractic school, Dr. John Kelly, who's a massive legend in the chiropractic profession here within Australia, said that there is a universal intelligence in all matter that constantly gives of itself and properties, thus maintaining itself in existence. And I was an 18-year-old young man that didn't have a clue what that meant. Didn't know what to do with it, didn't know what that saying meant, but somehow I was changed. I can't explain how I was changed. I can't explain how the change took place within me, other than those words became a light in the dark with the confusion that I had, the uncertainty as a young man, and the lack of clarity and vision for a person's life. But chiropractic philosophy gave me clarity, it gave me direction, it gave me purpose. It enabled me to have the ability to understand principled living expressed through chiropractic. And so from that moment onwards, I dedicated myself to becoming the best chiropractor I could, the best servant to my patients, my community, and to the profession that I could. And that's been an ongoing journey for 28 years. And I think throughout that, I've studied not only chiropractic, I've looked into the principles and philosophy of chiropractic, the science and neuroscience of chiropractic, mastered art and technique, and even looked into the principle of growing myself as a person, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, so that I can express my talents, my gifts in the most profound and powerful way. And I continue to be on that journey, and I'm humbled by opportunities to be able to share and speak. So I probably would say my journey's just been becoming the best vessel I can possibly be to serve in whatever way that I can. And I think that's a long journey that we're all on, and probably gives a sense of who I am and why I'm here.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. There's so much to unpack there. But I will tell you what first comes to mind. And I'll tell you why I think it's important we talk about this. I speak to chiropractors every single day, all over the world. My VA told me the other day that we've had over 4,000 conversations with chiropractors in various means. So it's given me quite a direct experience of what's going on. And when I speak to chiropractors, they're in different situations. I would say the majority are looking to expand the impact that they're making. They want to expand the contribution that they're making. They're very mission driven. They're very inspired, and they are asking our advice on how they can scale that using online services, coaching, and various methods. I'd say that's the majority, and probably we attract that because of the messaging we put out. But there's another part of that profession that is extremely frustrated. They've lost a lot of that passion. The trenches of running a practice and regulation and all these things has put them in a situation where they're saying to themselves, I'm looking for something else for my fulfillment, which is sad to me. Now, in speaking to someone like you, I have an idea of why this is, but I'll ask your opinion on it. Why is it that after 28 years, you still have so much of that drive, even though you have faced the same challenges? And I know how things are in Australia for chiropractic. It's very similar to some other countries in terms of regulation and some of the resistance you fight against there. So why is it that you still get up in the morning with the same level, and there are other chiropractors that are in a situation where they are not?
I think the answer to that really comes down to, I love the BJ Palmer quote that you never know how far-reaching something you do or say today may affect the lives of millions of people tomorrow. And I love the idea of a multiverse. And if I can take a moment to share a story about, I think, how my motivation stems from not the multiverse itself, but a story that the multiverse can share about each and every single chiropractor on the planet. And I imagine that there's this multiverse, and a mother comes in on Earth 1 to my practice, and she says, look, I've got these headaches, and I've got these, this stress level that's really affecting me. And in Earth 1, I'm not really conscious. I'm not present. I'm not, attuned to the science, art, and philosophy of chiropractic, aware of the gifts that it provides. And I do what I do in every other unattached, undisconnected, and unrelated way. I give her an adjustment and go on to the next patient without thought, without consciousness, without a desire to make a far-reaching impact. And then so she comes in the next week and she's got a bit of a better headache, but then I don't see her again after a little while. She comes in a couple of months later, the headaches are back. And again, I'm disconnected. I'm just adjusting her. And I use the word just deliberately because I could never put the word just in front of the term adjustment. And I just give her another adjustment. And she talks about the stress she's under. Her family is, being torn apart at the seams by the way the world is going. And I don't have the skills, knowledge, or tools to support her. Then after a period of time, she explains how her and husband are separating. And, her husband goes off and the kids and the young son ends up on ADHD medication. The daughter self-harms. The husband has a heart attack. And she's now this isolated single mum whose life has been ravaged unnecessarily by the world around her. And the daughter then commits suicide. And I look at this world and I go, wow, it's a crazy world in which we live. And here I am, a chiropractor, and I just get to see this every day. But then on Earth 26, I'm a chiropractor that has a deep philosophy, a principled approach to life. This lady comes in. I hear her. I connect in with her. I adjust her with intention, and her headache is better. But I don't stop with the symptom-based approach. I hear the trauma that she's in. I hear the story that she's telling. And I express principle chiropractic in a way and say, we can't just adjust you symptomatically. We need to uncover the cause. We need to look for solutions now, lasting and permanent, to be able to give you the gift of an extraordinary life. And so I don't just adjust her, I educate her, I talk tick. And then I encourage her to bring her children in. And her children come in, and they need to be adjusted. And then their father comes in, the husband comes in, and he decides, well, this is something that he really needs because he's under massive stress as well. And then this relationship blossoms under the gifts of chiropractic, free of interference, the nervous system expressing optimum health and potential, the children no longer, as they did on Earth 1, requiring any intervention from a medical paradigm, the marriage strong, the health robust, and the far-reaching effects of my willingness to adjust them from a principled approach, to gift them the understanding of chiropractic, is transformative in their life. And the far-reaching effect of that is not only do people not get medicated, not commit suicide, not die of a heart attack, or do marriages break and fall apart, creating conflict in people's lives in a desperate world. it actually elevates not only their lives and their health, but the consciousness of humanity. So, to answer that question, why do I get up every day? Because I know I change and save lives. It is as simple and profound as that. And the multiverse, you can be in any one of those worlds and be depleted as a chiropractor, or you can be awakened and enlivened as a chiropractor, and you can share your gifts and make a change in the world. So I wake up every morning knowing that I have a job to do, a mission to serve, impact to be had. Yes, one adjustment at a time. But as you do, serving on a larger scale, finding other ways where I can serve my profession, influence other chiropractors, equip, educate, empower them so that the far-reaching effect isn't in one room only, here within my practice, but extended beyond that, as far-reaching as I can possibly be, knowing that lives are going to change, humanity is going to elevate in consciousness, and the far-reaching effects of what I do will go beyond what I can even imagine. And that gets me up every morning.
That's one of the best answers I've ever heard. And I've spoken to a lot of people. And I want to thank you for putting that across. That is going to be incredibly, incredibly helpful. It was helpful to me. And what I wanted to say about you, because of what you mentioned earlier, and will lead into a question, is you have incredible clarity, certainty, authenticity behind you, and that comes out in your communication. But you mentioned something earlier that you do the work on yourself, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And my opinion on this is that with the environment that we live in, if we don't put in the work on a regular basis, mentally, physically, spiritually, on ourselves, the environment has the natural tendency to drag us into the gutter and pull us away from our mission and purpose. So my assumption of you would be that you do this introspection, asking the correct questions, and you work on yourself in a very regular, perhaps even systemized manner. And that, again, could be one of the reasons why you have stayed so connected over the last 28 years. Now, would you agree with that?
Yeah, look, I agree wholeheartedly with that. Firstly, we're all swimming against the current. There is a waterfall that will drag us if we do not swim against that current. And that swimming is the education you provide yourself, the networks that you're a part of, and the communities that you invest into, the learning that you go through, the spiritual practices, the faith you develop, the philosophy you live by. So yeah, I think if you're not actively doing something to grow, to learn, to become more tomorrow, you are going to be less as a result of that, dragged by the current, which will escalate and accelerate over time until you can no longer swim against that current, and it will drag you over that waterfall to a demise that we don't even want to consider. So I have swum against the current, and I have done that work. And for those who might think, look, maybe it's easy for Marcus to say he has this elegant communication, and I recognise I am a good speaker. What I do need to share with people is I grew up in a Southern European background, and when I was 15, 16 and 17, my language was, swearing and, hey, gal mate, good to see you, yeah, bloody oath. And I wasn't actually an articulate or elegant speaker. I could speak, but I wasn't as thoughtful, and I was suspended more times than people turn up to school. I had a pretty difficult childhood. I had a burns injury at a young age. I literally fought my way through primary and then high school. I had relationship challenges. My father passed away from alcoholism. My parents separated. My sister committed suicide. We've all had traumas, and the question isn't whether we're going to face these traumas and be victims to them. It's whether we're going to be victors over the experiences we have and use them as catalysts for growth, for transformation, for healing. And then because we become more through that process, we can serve more. And there's pain there for all of us. And the question isn't whether that pain will be there. It'll be whether that becomes a catalyst for our healing and our growth and our service to humanity, not just in our practice, but the way we contribute to the world. And so, I've done the work. I have read for half an hour to an hour every day for the last 20 plus years, and probably read on average 100 books a year. Whenever I'm in the car, I listen to my Audible books. I listen to probably 50 audio books a year. I attend conferences. I have an incredible I'm immersed in the chiropractic community of people who love to serve, and that means I go to events all the time. And I'm a really, it may sound, people might find this difficult to believe, but quite antisocial, and had a reasonable high level of social anxiety. And I tell this story because I think hopefully it empowers people to step out of their own comfort zones. I used to be the one, I'd go to these seminars and learn a lot, but at break time, I'd go hide in the toilet so that I didn't have to speak to people. I was so uncomfortable in social settings. And then I realized that I can't play small anymore. I can't have a success. I had a greatly successful practice, but I wasn't doing all I could in service at a higher level. And so that's where I had to overcome the social anxiety and the feeling of discomfort being on a stage or in a platform and talking. And that all requires the work. And if somebody who can be basically either heading for jail or transforming their life to be a servant to humanity can get to this point, anyone can get to this point. But you do the work, you do the reading, you do the audiobook listening, you get adjusted every single week, and you talk to chiropractors who are inspired, and you maintain presence within that community to elevate yourself on a constant, reproducible basis, to raise your own vibration, your own thinking, so that you can create service at the highest level.
Great. Again, packed full of value. What came out for me, which again, this is in the context of the conversations I've had with chiropractors, is that when you are called towards something, you're not called towards comfort. And that's something to understand. And you are not the first one. In fact, I can think of so many people, myself included, that are introverted in a way. I have the same experience at seminars. I would love seminars, but at the lunch break, I would walk out with my tray of food, and it was like all I wanted to do was go hide in the corner. So there was discomfort there, and speaking in public didn't come naturally to me. And I can tell you so many world-class communicators have the same background, but they were willing to go through that discomfort because they realized they were never going to reach the potential and get the fulfillment that they could have unless they went through that discomfort. So leaning towards discomfort is a characteristic trait that I see in almost everybody that's not only successful externally, but is successful internally, that has that level of fulfillment, because it's not just about the external, it's obviously the internal as well. So thank you for sharing that. And the other thing that came out for me there was controlling your environment as much as you can. There's a very well-known saying that you become the 5 people that you hang around with. And I'm sure when you were younger, those 5 people may not have been ideal, but you chose now in your professional career to go to the seminars, get on webinars like this, connect with people that are on the same path, and then that environment that you've controlled influences you and keeps you as you go up against that current. So there's a lot of chiropractors out there that have so much to offer, more than they even realize, but are for whatever reason not willing to go through that discomfort, and then they stay stuck where they are, and that's a decision that they would have to make for themselves. And something else, sorry, this is just coming to me now, and I think it's important because this is a primary belief that I have, and one of the reasons why I have the company that I have. I believe that the principles of chiropractic are bigger than health. And those same principles are in relationships, are in spirituality, are in business. And I truly believe that at my core, that it is bigger than even health. The reason why we started this company is we wanted chiropractors to take their knowledge and their expertise, use the online platform to help the world in various ways, because we understood that if the chiropractic principles were injected in whatever they were teaching online, it would serve the world. And in listening to you speak, you get that. And that's probably one of the major reasons why you have been able to achieve what you can achieve. So thank you. Just to get into some practicality around this, you are very strong philosophically. You can see that, and you've read a lot and everything else. But I also know that you are highly attuned to the scientific aspect of chiropractic. If you look at one of the reasons why chiropractic is not serving as many people as it should, is this constant rift between our philosophy and our science. And you will have people within and without the profession that say the challenge chiropractic has is the scientific validation of what we do. Now, this, I don't want to get into critique or judgment of anybody's beliefs around chiropractic. That's not what this conversation is about. But why do you think it is that we still have people that would say something like the vertebral subluxation complex is not a scientifically valid principle, it's more a theoretical or historical thing, and we should move away from that? Why is it that we are not at a point where the science and the philosophy are aligned? What is the reason for that? And will we ever get to a place where the science is aligned with the philosophy and it makes sense to people both inside and outside the profession?
Yeah, that is a beautiful question. It's a profound question, and it's a question that may not be able to be fully answered within the scope of this conversation and the time that this conversation has. But I will break it down to what you said. Why would people think that way, that it isn't anything more than a historical construct? And if I answer that question, is that comes down to education that leads to beliefs. So if you go to a teaching institution that does not teach subluxation-based chiropractic, then your education is going to be contrasting that viewpoint. So the first thing is, we are a product of our teachers, our preachers, our parents. So we take on the belief system unconsciously from our family to some degree, from our education institutions to some degree, from our faith to some degree. Many times people don't question whether that indoctrination, and it is indoctrination, whether it is one side or the other, it's still an indoctrination, and whether it's parental, it is still an indoctrination. So we never question or challenge our indoctrination. So the first reason is there will be a group of people that received education that said subluxation is purely historical, it has no scientific basis. And they make that statement without challenging it, without questioning it, without speaking to a person who may have a different viewpoint to that, with the intention of being changed by the conversation. And that's a key distinction, because oftentimes, we enter into a monologue between two people, and the first person to draw breath is considered the listener. And we're not there to grow, to learn, to expand our paradigm, to test our own belief systems. We're there to usually impose our beliefs on another, and when they don't agree with us, we deny them. And that's the first challenge we have. If we're not going to understand the premise or look to seek a deeper understanding of it, we're not going to change our own paradigm. And so there's the first reason the conflict exists, is indoctrination creates people who believe what they believe without challenging their beliefs, questioning their beliefs, or working in a relationship for growth purposes around a new belief. The second thing is, they don't do the learning from the other paradigm to test its validity as well. So, for example, someone may say, well, prove this nonsense idea of subluxation exists. And then they provide some evidence. And now that person may not be an expert. And because they're not an expert, their education or explanation is flawed. And then the person says, so you haven't got a clue, so it can't be real. So now I'm going to hold my belief. But they then didn't come and talk to some of the great minds in vitalistic chiropractic to say, explain your philosophy, your science, with an open heart and an open mind to be changed in their perception. So they aren't pursuing the education in the right places by the right people, and then they aren't reflecting on that and critiquing their own understanding based on the new information. So we tend to get stuck without knowing that we're stuck, or thinking that we're stuck, and then holding on to that stuckness, even in place of people who have opposing views that may be able to defend themselves. So does the science exist? I mean, Kelly Holt did an amazing report from New Zealand College of Chiropractic, the Centre for Chiropractic Research, and showed, here is the definition of chiropractic, here is how we analyse and detect a subluxation, here is what a subluxation is by this definition. And I would say that everybody would agree with the definition, that a subluxation represents certain elements of alignment, mechanical, neurological dysfunction. The challenge often comes in, is there a mental impulse and a spiritual domain to it? But within research, we're not challenging that aspect. But philosophers would then come and say, you've got to add a mental impulse to your construct. But because we don't have the technology and the sensitivity of technology to identify a mental impulse, it remains philosophical, not scientific. So, to the neuroscience based chiropractor, we probably all agree closely to what we understand. We may use different language or words to what a subluxation is, why it's relevant, how we analyze it, how we detect it, its impact on the neurology, functional capacity, and well-being of a body, and that an adjustment restores expression of nerve function and therefore optimizes health and well-being. So I don't think any of us disagree. We just get opinionated on belief systems that have nuanced language that creates oppositional context, which is actually not existing. It's because of our belief systems limit our perspectives, and the lenses we look through prevent us from being able to see accurately. If we then actually open up to the communication and the dialogue instead of a monologue and listen to each other, and Stephen Covey, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, said, seek first to understand, then to be understood. If you enter into a dialogue with that approach to communication, you will learn more about the history, the clinical aspect, the theoretical aspect of subluxation, realize we're actually talking the same language and we're 98% on the same page. And there may be distinctions, but if you were 98% in alignment with your partner, would that be a great marriage? You don't have to agree on everything. We invariably don't. But we're focusing on the things we don't agree on instead of the things that we do agree on. And when we come together on what we agree on, we will unify the profession and it will change the trajectory of this planet. And so I hope that answers the question, that there are ways that we're seeing the world, seeing subluxation and seeing chiropractic, that are limiting our perspectives, and we open our eyes, our hearts and our minds to looking at different perspectives and different truths. The world opens up before us and we become capable of becoming more as a result.
Completely align and agree with that. The reason why I asked that question is exactly what you said, is I believe we are 98, 99% in alignment, even with people outside the profession. I may have told this story before, but I once did a presentation to 80 medical doctors, and I described very simply my understanding of the neuroscience of what a subluxation was, what an adjustment did, using the concepts of what I learned from James Chestnut and Heidi Harvick. And I was expecting resistance. And at the end of the conversation, I said, please stick up your hand if you would like to challenge any of this, or if any of this doesn't make sense to you from a physiological point of view, logical point of view. And not one person in that audience disagreed. And I don't think it was because they were fearful of saying anything. They were very communicative throughout the presentation. But from a logical standpoint, based on their understanding of physiology, the human body, and them looking at my thought process, out of 80 medical doctors, they had no issue with it. The one comment that came up and comes up all the time is the one doctor said, we didn't know this, that this is what you communicate. My understanding was that you are saying you push a bone into place and therefore you heal something in the body, which is not what we were saying. So there's a massive misalignment in communication here. And here's maybe the thing, and maybe we should touch on it briefly. The big challenge is not necessarily that the spine has an effect on the nervous system. Perhaps it's, what does that mean in terms of health? Because if we are saying that an adjustment will give you health, that's not correct, because there's more to health than just the neurological communication. But that's not what chiropractic is saying. It's saying you will have more potential to express health, more so than if you have the subluxation. Would you agree with that? That is the message that we should be communicating?
Yeah, absolutely. The message is that people are better when they are subluxation free, which means they are better when their body is more adaptive, more resilient, more able to respond appropriately and adapt to its environment, that we have greater introspection and therefore awareness of our body, and greater proprioception and therefore awareness of our body in space, which means we can more clearly, effortlessly be in our environment and our world, limiting the stressors or increasing our adaptive response to those stressors, allowing us to express our health, our life more fully and completely. The chiropractor doesn't heal. The adjustment doesn't heal. The adjustment allows the nervous system to be more responsive, and a more responsive nervous system expresses health, expresses life, allows adaptation, and creates the opportunity for a person to live more fully and completely as a result. That's I don't think anyone argues with that, because when you then talk about trauma to the nervous system or lesions on the spine, we're talking pathological lesions, we know that we get interrupted nerve signals, nerve expression, nerve communication, and that's an interruption to the health. And if we are allowing the body to perceive itself more accurately, then we're allowing the body in that greater perception to experience greater connection to the health giving properties that are already innately present within the body. It's a great gift.
And again, your communication is so clear, and the people that listen to this, I think, will get so much value. They should listen to this a few times to learn how you put this message together so that it makes sense and that it's extremely simplified. To me, using the analogy, and you can let me know if you agree with this, it's almost like if you look at nutrition. If you eat a healthy diet, that does not necessarily mean you will be healthy or your disease will be cured or you will never get disease. But it does mean you'll be better off than the person that eats unhealthily. Now that's,
Yeah, absolutely.
and to me, that's what chiropractic is saying in terms of the vertebral subluxation. You are better off if your body can express itself through the nervous system than if you couldn't. In some cases, that may mean your IBS improves. In some cases, it may not. Who knows? Because it's multifactorial. But all we can say is you will be better off. And it's biologically compatible. There's very little to almost no side effects. And again, it's why I brought this up, and I'm so glad we aligned with this. It seems like we are 98 or 99% there. It's just this last 1% that is the challenge. But with people like you and the organizations that you, and let's talk about that, you have done a lot of fundraising for various institutions around research. So I assume this is a big passion of yours, of getting to this point where we can get past that last 2% and unifying the profession, and also making sure that chiropractic is integrated into natural healthcare the way that it should be.
Yeah, look, I think there's Malcolm Gladwell wrote the book The Tipping Point, and chiropractic will not ever reach the tipping point and serve humanity the way, the capacity for it to do. Is it's there, but we won't reach that capacity without a tipping point, and that tipping point requires us to be unified and to be working together to the same outcome. If we're in conflict over the 1 or 2% that we disagree on, then we're never going to really serve humanity at the level that I would like and believe that we're capable of achieving. So that's why, yes, I'm involved. I'm actually on the board of the Australian Spinal Research Foundation, which does subluxation-based research. I fundraise for them. I've fundraised for the Australian Chiropractic College because it is a principled chiropractic teaching institution here in Australia. I think that one of the things that fundraising does is makes the money accessible to make a difference to the profession. And you mentioned maybe we can get to that 100%. I don't think we actually need to get to that 100% because, I don't think my wife really agrees with me that football is a great sport and that she should be following, Collingwood Football Club or Liverpool Football Club. She doesn't care. We're never going to agree on that, but that isn't an end to our relationship. What we agree on is that we want to serve our children, raise our children to make a profound impact in the world, equip them to be great people, and that they be happy and healthy and have a sense of purpose in their life. We get behind what matters, and I think every chiropractor agrees that we want to impact the health and lives of our patients, educate our community, elevate the profession in the eyes of not only the community but even the medical profession, to have a sense of understanding and even status. I think every chiropractor would agree that we want to understand the science to how chiropractic impacts the body, and a body free of whatever interference they want to call that, subluxation or otherwise, allows for the better expression of health and well-being and a better world. So we agree on that. The differences are almost irrelevant. It's just coming together in a common language. And that's why research to me is so important. Philosophy, yes, it's central to who I am and what I do. The research is an imperative though, because that becomes the common language. That becomes the language that we all can agree on, that now we can analyze and detect and give evidence for a subluxation. We can evidence that subluxation influences health in some way, and that adjusting that subluxation allows for a person to experience and express greater health. And once we all are in an agreement with that, we've done most of the work, because we're no longer conflicting over our agreements. We're now saying, well, I've said that all along. Yeah, well, I said that all along. You said that all along. We're saying the same thing. So now we can align our forces, align our energies, and move in the direction of making powerful and positive change. And so for me, I invest deeply into fundraising for research and host summits that bring that knowledge to the practices and to the practitioners and to the communities, because as we elevate our knowledge and our understanding and equip and educate ourselves to be more and become more informed, we create a more positive impact, and we inherently and naturally unify. And that serves not only our practices, our communities, but the profession, and therefore the world at large.
Amazing. And at the end of this conversation, we're going to talk about where people can go to learn more about your fundraising, because I think it's extremely powerful what you're doing for the profession. And I just, again, want to thank you for everything that you do. The question I have, and this comes from off the top of my head because of your background, one of the challenges in chiropractic shifting into traditional healthcare is objective measurement, reproducible objective measurement of that there's a problem, you provide something, and it improves. And my question to you is, based on your understanding of the research and where the research is going, do you believe we'll get to a point where we will be using technology more to assess our patients, that it can be done in a reproducible way between different chiropractors and becomes more objective than it is now? We know the subluxation station, heart rate variability, there's all these technologies that have been around for quite some time. But are we going to get to a point where we can use technology to show the objective changes pre and post chiropractic care?
The answer is an unequivocal yes, yes, and yes. Interesting enough, the research is there, the technology is there, the science is there. It's just not present within most practices. And if we talk about even some of the fundamental measures, the objective measures that give us feedback and insight onto our effectiveness of care and the impact that it has, we can start with, firstly, a spinal screening. You've got those beautiful spinal screen apps. You look at the postural analysis and you can see before and after effects. So immediately we can take a tangible, what is your posture like? What is the structure of your spine? And do an adjustment program, and we'll see positive changes. You can put that on your iPad or tablet and start that immediately, and those objective measures are very clear and definitive. So even on a fundamental level, we've got that. You can do X-ray analysis pre and post. I do that all the time, and we see curve changes. We see degenerative changes, reversing. I've got, disc regeneration, repair, osteophyte resorption back into the body. So we see objective, tangible evidence of spinal decay changing post chiropractic. So there's another objective measure. You mentioned subluxation station, or what's now termed the Insight Scanner technology from Chiropractic Leadership Alliance. We're getting clear evidence from improved thermography, HRV, heart rate variability, and EEG, that pre and post chiropractic is altering those parameters of muscle. You've got the neuroinfinity, which is EEG, brainwave patterning, and that's been done by some major research organizations and institutions, showing that a single chiropractic adjustment alters brainwave function even more significantly than 50 psychology sessions of CBT. We are profound in the influence on brain function and neurology. And then you add functional magnetic resonance imaging, showing the influence of the chiropractic adjustment on prefrontal cortex, altering our decision-making and executive thinking. We have these research elements there. There's been blood tests, pre and post adjustment. So the research is there. We are showing that chiropractic has a profound influence. Now we need to extend that into double-blind and randomized clinical trials, so that we meet the criteria of big pharma. We have all of the research that evidences clinically the gifts and profound, powerful impact of chiropractic. But then big pharma comes in and says, you need to do it our way to prove it. And the challenge with that statement is it doesn't lend itself to chiropractic care the same way it does to a drug. One,
Absolutely,
because
yeah.
it costs $2.5 million to do the test, and we're not funded like pharmaceutical companies. And two, the clinical application isn't as pertinent or relevant, but we're still going to do it nonetheless. And when we do, we get great results. So the answer is yes. We've got all of these observable, objective and tangible evidentials of being able to analyze and detect, see the gifts of adjusting subluxation on every parameter of the body. Now we just need to go deeper with that research, which is why I fundraise for research, because I'd love to be able to then say, we have proven unequivocally, according to the criteria of pharmaceutical companies, not anybody else, because we've already proven it within the scope of everybody else's requirements, but people don't read the literature, which they really need to. And now we're playing with the big boys because they demanded of us if we're going to have the credibility from that group of people. But do we need the credibility? I don't think we do, but we should get it anyway. And so
Yes.
that is a distinction.
And I must say, there's so much good work coming out of Australia and New Zealand when it comes to this spinal research, and it seems like the funding is there. So I've no doubt that there's going to be huge leaps in this over the coming years, and you'll be a big part of that. We've run out of time. I've absolutely loved this conversation. I know everyone says stuff like this, but I truly would have a 2-hour conversation with you, and I think we would unpack even more value. So you must definitely come back onto this podcast if you're open to it. But before we go, where can people go to see what you're up to look at your fundraising events? We'll post it up in the links of the show, but where should they go to really if they want to connect and help you on your mission?
Certainly. Look, www.chiropracticeducationonline.com. That's a wonderful resource. I've hosted, I think now 12 particular education summits across a broad spectrum of interest. I hope it caters to so many people. And I don't ask for people to donate to my charity or my cause. I give all of my funds to things like the Australian Spinal Research Foundation, New Zealand College, and any organisation that's serving the profession from a non-profit basis. And what I do is I say, don't just donate to me. I give you more value than I ask for in return for your investment. So I'm not saying just donate money, make it a tax deduction. I'm saying let me give you the world-class education that's going to completely change the trajectory of your practice and your life, that will inspire, educate, and equip you to be a profound influence on your patients and community. And if you happen to get and provide a fee for that, which I then pass on to other organisations as part of my charitable act, then we have a win-win-win. And I think that's a great gift. So chiropracticeducationonline.com, some great resources there. I know you will absolutely love so many of those events, and it'll just change your life. So hopefully that's something that people will look at.
It's absolutely a win-win situation for the doctor, for the profession. So I really do hope as many people as possible go have a look at that and support it if they're in the position to support it. But I want to thank you again for your time. I'm going to spread this conversation as much as I possibly can, because I really believe it has the potential really to change some people's lives, especially if they're in a situation where they're feeling stuck or uncertain about what they should do. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you for what you do. And thanks everyone that's listening, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, guys. I love you all because you love what I love, and thanks, Rob. Appreciate you, my friend. Bye.
Bye-bye.